Tonight, we're remembering 10 soul singers who chose when to step away. Artists who didn't wait to be pushed off the stage, but knew when the moment had come to take a bow and let the silence carry what they'd given. Back then, soul music wasn't background noise. It filled kitchens, back seats, basements, and front porches. These voices didn't just sing, they told the truth, sweet truths, hard truths. The kind that stayed with you while dinner simmered or the house finally went quiet. These artists weren't remembered just for how they sang, but for when they knew to stop. Some left quietly, some surprised us, but each departure felt deliberate, meaningful, and final. And the singer at number 1? Their exit felt like the closing of a chapter none of us were ready to let go of. Let's begin with number 10. Number 10, Ain't No Way, by Aretha Franklin. She was the queen of soul, and her reign stretched for decades. But even queens know when it's time to step back. Aretha Franklin didn't just leave the stage. She eased away from it, with grace, with dignity, and with that unmistakable presence that never once dimmed, even as the spotlight faded. It was the late 2010s. Aretha had given the world enough to fill 1,000 lifetimes. Hits that shaped generations, performances that echoed through history. Her health was quietly declining, and the stage began to feel like a place for reflection, not declaration. But when she did step up, like at the Kennedy Center Honors in 2015, you could feel the hush in the room. Even the Obamas wiped away tears. That voice still had the weight of thunder, even if the body behind it had grown tired. What stood out most wasn't just her final notes. It was the silence that followed, the way she let go without fanfare. No drama, no announcements, just a quiet understanding with the audience. She had done what she came to do. In the end, she left us not with a farewell, but with a legacy. One wrapped in fur coats, gospel roots, and an unwavering demand for respect. She knew when to walk away. And because of that, we'll always remember her standing tall, one hand on the piano, the other raised to the heavens. Some voices never leave the room. They just linger in the quiet after the music fades. Number 9, Everybody Plays the Fool by Cuba Gooding Sr. There was a time when Cuba Gooding Sr. was everywhere. As the magnetic frontman of the main ingredient, his voice turned everyday heartbreak into something almost holy. Songs like Just Don't Want to Be Lonely and Everybody Plays the Fool weren't just hits. They were companions, spinning on turntables in dim-lit rooms where love was either blooming or slipping away. But Cuba was never one to chase the spotlight forever. The mid-1980s brought a quieter season. While others pushed on with reinventions and reunion tours, he stepped back. Not because the talent was gone, it wasn't, but because sometimes an artist knows when their chapter in the story has been told. He focused more on family, faith, and finding peace outside the rhythm of the stage. In later years, he would perform here and there, mostly for joy, not for charts. And there was joy in that, a different kind of applause, the kind that comes from knowing who you are beyond the microphone. In a world that often tells artists to never stop, Cuba Gooding Sr. showed us the grace of knowing when to pause. Some singers leave the stage, others simply return to themselves. Number 8, Let's Stay Together by Al Green. In the early 70s, his voice floated through every radio dial, silky and warm, like honey dripping over a slow Sunday morning. Al Green didn't just sing love songs, he embodied them. There was something in the way he breathed between notes, something soft yet unmistakably powerful. But by the mid-1970s, something changed. After a personal tragedy and a moment of deep spiritual reckoning, Al began to shift. Slowly, he stepped away from secular music. He didn't vanish overnight, but he moved with intention toward gospel, toward ministry, toward something more eternal. He became Reverend Al Green, not just a title, but a calling. The stage changed from concert halls to church pulpits. His voice still soared, but now it reached for heaven more than heartbreak. He didn't abandon soul music, he redirected it. And even when he returned to R&B later on, He carried that quiet knowing of a man who had already said what he needed to say. Green didn't retire in the traditional sense. He transformed. He knew when to let one version of himself go to make room for another. Some voices don't fade. They simply rise in a different light. Number 7, Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul. That slow, smoldering ballad about a love that wasn't meant to be. Billy Paul made it feel like a secret you were almost ashamed to sing along with, but you did anyway, because the pain in his voice was too familiar, too human. Billy Paul was always a little outside the spotlight, not chasing stardom the way others did. He wasn't trying to be a superstar. He just wanted to tell the truth in 3 minutes and a few verses, and he did that again and again, with a voice that could slip from a whisper to a wail in the span of a breath. By the late 1980s, the stage wasn't home anymore. He performed occasionally, but there was no rush for comebacks or reinventions, no desperate grasp for one more chart hit. He let his legacy sit right where it belonged, in the hearts of people who remembered that one song, in that one moment, when everything felt too complicated and too beautiful to explain. He left quietly, the way he sang, smooth, honest, and with just a trace of ache. Some songs don't end with applause, they end with a sigh and a memory. Number 6, Rainy Night in Georgia by Brooke Benton. There's something about Brooke Benton's voice that always felt like it was raining outside. Smooth, low, wrapped in melancholy. His tone could turn even the simplest lyric into something cinematic. Rainy Night in Georgia wasn't just a song, it was a mood, a place, a memory, the kind that lingered long after the record stopped spinning. Brooke had already made his mark in the 1950s and 60s with hits like It's Just a Matter of Time. But by the early 1980s, he had gracefully stepped away from the mainstream stage. Not out of bitterness, not out of failure, but out of understanding. He knew when his season had come and gone, and instead of clinging to the spotlight, he let the music rest. He still sang here and there. He still was the voice, but he didn't chase the moment. He honored what had been, and in doing so, he kept the music sacred. Brooke's departure wasn't televised. It didn't make headlines, but those who listened closely knew when he had sung his last verse. Some departures come not with silence, but with the echo of rain against the window. If this is bringing back memories, subscribing helps keep these stories alive. These voices, these moments, they live on when we share them. Number 5, You Make Me Feel Brand New by Russell Tompkins Jr., The Stylistics. Few voices in soul music reached quite as high or quite as gently as Russell Tompkins Jr. with The Stylistics. He gave us falsetto that didn't scream for attention. It invited you in. It wrapped around songs like Betcha by Golly, Wow, and You Make Me Feel Brand New with a tenderness that felt like a secret being whispered just to you. Through the 1970s, that sound was everywhere. But by the turn of the millennium, something shifted. Russell made the quiet decision to step away from the Stylistics. Not out of conflict, but out of clarity. The group continued with other voices, but he moved on. He formed his own group, then gradually moved into a more reflective pace. He didn't vanish. He just stopped chasing the spotlight. He let his voice become what it always was, timeless, gentle, and filled with grace. There was no grand finale, no farewell tour splashed across headlines. Just a man who had given enough and knew it. And for those who grew up with his songs playing while love bloomed and faded, his exit felt just right, not dramatic, just honest. Some voices retreat like a sunset, soft, golden, and impossible to forget. Number 4, I Believe in You, You Believe in Me by Johnny Taylor. Johnny Taylor could sing anything, gospel, blues, soul, disco. He did it all, and he did it with a swagger that felt both smooth and grounded. His voice had an edge to it, the kind that carried both church pews and smoky nightclubs in the same breath. When he sang "I Believe in You," it didn't sound like a song. It sounded like a vow. But behind that voice was a man who understood the rhythm of life, not just music. By the late 1990s, after a career that spanned decades and styles, Johnny Taylor knew it was time to slow down. He didn't announce a retirement. He didn't need to. He just started choosing peace over performance. Fewer shows, longer pauses, more time with family, more time with faith. In his final years, his voice still held its fire, but he let the silence between the songs grow longer. He seemed to know that his records would keep spinning long after he was gone. He passed in 2000, but by then, the world already knew. Johnny had given his full self to the music, and he had left nothing undone. Some goodbyes don't need words, just a final note held long enough to break your heart. Number 3, If You Don't Know Me By Now, by Teddy Pendergrass. Teddy Pendergrass didn't just sing, he commanded. His voice filled every inch of a room, rich, deep, wrapped in power and vulnerability. Whether it was with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes or during his explosive solo years, Teddy had a way of making every listener feel seen, loved, desired. But in 1982, life turned in an instant. A car accident left him paralyzed from the chest down. For many, that would have been the end, but not for Teddy. He returned to the stage, to the studio, to his people, with the same fire, the same grace, seated in a wheelchair, still larger than life. Through the late 1980s and 1990s, he kept recording, he kept performing, but slowly and gently, the appearances became fewer. He knew his energy had shifted, and rather than burn out chasing what had been, Teddy chose his peace. He retired officially in 2007, his voice still respected, his legacy untouched. There was no pity in his story, only power, because knowing when to leave takes just as much courage as knowing how to stay. Some artists leave the stage, but their strength keeps singing long after the music stops. Number 2, Try a Little Tenderness by Otis Redding. He was supposed to have decades ahead of him. Instead, Otis Redding gave us everything in just a handful of years, and then he was gone. But even in that short time, he understood something that takes most a lifetime: when to hold back and when to give it all. By the mid-1960s, Otis had already carved his place in soul music's foundation. His voice was raw and urgent, like a man with something heavy on his chest. Try a Little Tenderness didn't just show his vocal fire, it showed his restraint, his ability to make you wait, to build, to ache. In December 1967, just days before a plane crash would claim his life, Otis recorded "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay." The tone was different, quiet, reflective, almost like a goodbye. He whistled at the end, like he knew words wouldn't be enough. Some say he felt a change coming. Others say he was simply evolving. We'll never know if he was planning to walk away from the high-energy performance style. But his final recordings point to a man turning inward, slowing down, listening. Some exits aren't planned, but they still feel complete, like a candle flickering out just after lighting the room. Number 1, Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye. No voice whispered to the soul quite like Marvin Gaye's says. He could float through desire, despair, protest, and prayer, all in a single breath. Through the 1960s and 70s, he gave us some of the most intimate, most human music ever recorded. From What's Going On to Sexual Healing, Marvin didn't just perform. He opened his chest and let the world see inside. But Marvin also carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. Fame, family, faith, fear, they often collided within him. In the early 1980s, after years of struggle both personal and professional, he began to drift from the spotlight. There were brief returns, moments of fire, but they were followed by longer silences. He moved to Europe for a time, seeking peace, anonymity, maybe salvation. He recorded sparingly, toured less. Those who saw him said he seemed quieter, older than his years. He was only in his early 40s. In 1984, just one day before his birthday, Marvin was gone, his life taken in a moment that felt impossible to understand. And yet, in many ways, he had already begun to leave, not in defeat, but in a deep search for rest. Some artists don't walk away from music. They walk towards something the music could never quite give them. These weren't just soul singers, they were soul givers. And when they chose to walk away, or life led them to the edge, they did so with something more powerful than applause. They did it with grace. Because the truth is, every era ends, every voice, no matter how timeless, eventually finds its final note. But that doesn't mean the song is over. It lives on, in memory, in heart, in the hush of a late night with nothing but music in the past to keep you company. Thank you for remembering with us. If this list brought something back for you, some warmth, some ache, some joy, consider subscribing. That helps keep the music alive, not just on screen, but in spirit. And if you're ready to open another door of memory, join us for our next list. 10 R&B bands that finally retired in 2026. Just click the screen. We'll be right there with you. Until then, keep the volume low, the lights soft, and the heart open.